Good day, and welcome to Impact, a community affairs discussion program from the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. I'm Jeff Frederick. If you, a year or so ago, pulled your buddies together and told them Nick Foles and the Eagles were going to win a Super Bowl, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County was going to go to the NCAA Hoops tournament and beat a #1 seed like Virginia, and UCF was going to finish undefeated in college football and end up listed as a co-champion in the NCAA manual, then I want you to pick some lottery numbers for me. Sure, there were some not so surprising developments. Alabama held the official trophy in college football until Clemson won it back last month. The Warriors won the NBA championship, and the Red Sox and their massive payroll took home another World Series. But 2018 came and went, with the possibility that almost anything could happen. Tiger Woods even won again. Locally, Lumberton hosted a Dixie Youth World Series. Fayetteville prepared for the arrival of the Woodpeckers, a Class A minor league baseball team in the Houston Astros chain. And UNC Pembroke had a record-breaking year, particularly in basketball, soccer, baseball, cross country, and track. Here to review the 2018 year in sports and make a bold prediction or two about 2019 are journalists Jonathan Bim and Brandon Tester. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So think about the local stories that you reported on in the last year or so. Which was the most interesting? Which was the most impactful to you?
Well, I think right now, when I look back as when we did our top 10 sports stories of the year, it was when me and Brandon were both still working together at the Robesonian this summer, the Dixie Youth World Series. That has to come to mind. I mean, you're talking about a major impact economically. Sports-wise, everybody showed up that cared about sports in the Lumberton, Robertson County area. So it was a really big event. Brought kids from all across the southeast. Saw some great baseball as well. I mean, it wasn't just, you would think you go out to your sports field on a random Saturday and you see kids throwing the ball all over the field and playing baseball and t-ball and coach pitch. It was actually well done. I really thought it was enjoyable. There was some good games, good players, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those kids one day making a call up to the majors.
If you make it to the Dixie Youth World Series, you can play.
Yeah, there was no doubt about that.
And Brandon, you're now at the Laurinburg Exchange. Mm-hmm. What were some of the most interesting stories that you covered?
Well, one story that no one wishes they'd ever have to cover is that after Hurricane Florence, the recovery from that. Scotland High School did certainly feel the effects of that. Their home gym was flooded out, and just this last weekend they actually started playing basketball, their first actual home game of the season there. But that was certainly a hardship, and I know even all the schools in Robeson County felt that as well. And like I said, it was just a terrible event, but yet again, for the second time in a very short amount of time, we've seen this community rise up, so that was enjoyable to see that process happen.
What's the mindset you bring to covering local sports? It's a little different than covering a game that's going to be on national television in college or in professionals. How do you still keep the objectivity involved in covering local sports, but at the same time really enjoy the moment?
Yeah, it is really tough. I mean, especially when especially in Robertson County, you have 6 high schools, so there's a time Fairmont and St. Paul's will play. You can't show favoritism to one side because you'll get a parent calling you that Saturday morning saying, why didn't you cover Fairmont more or whatnot? So you have to, it's a balancing act, and it's enjoyable. I mean, for the people that do read it, there's people that went to the game that want to recount or want to see what the kids said. But there's also parents and family members that can't go, so they use our coverage to basically know what happened, or the parents from other schools so they can say, hey, did you see where Fairmont won by 35 over Purnell Sweat the other day or something like that. So it's a little bit of different coverage as opposed to, like you said, national, where someone can turn on the TV and watch the game and watch Duke blow out Florida State by 13 because they've seen it. So when you're covering it locally, you're having to bring your own angle or bring your advantage point from that.
And if you're covering a Panthers game, it's okay to talk about the interception Cam threw or the missed tackle Luke Kuechly might have had. It's a little different mindset when you're covering local sports or high school sports, right?
Right, yeah, definitely. And I think in local sports, what people like to see and what really sells papers is using local names, getting local kids in there. So, part of the approach I use is not only am I going to mention, who scored the most points in the game, who had a double-double, who scored the most touchdowns, but also, just kids who are, playing good defense, maybe the freshman who's coming up through the program, because a lot of times, especially in this region, kids tend to go under the radar in some respects. So I want to kind of give everyone a fair chance to get their name out there, let people know who they are and what they're doing out there on the field.
Which of the local teams that you covered in the past year or are covering now is the most formidable across the region or across the state?
Well, I think right now that you'd have to hand that off to Brandon, because I mean, obviously he saw one of the most magical runs, something that nobody really saw coming with the Scotland football this past fall.
Yeah, and Scotland, they're traditionally been a very good team under Coach Richard Bailey, and prior to this last season, they graduated 32 seniors off a team that finished as a runner-up at the state championship. It was a very bumpy road this year. They finished 500 as a regular season record, and yet they somehow pulled it all together. And with a senior class that kind of fluctuated around 8 or 9 healthy players at any given time, they went all the way to the state championship game, ended up losing, but I think midway through the season, I don't think a whole lot of people had them as a playoff team, let alone competing for the state championship. So that was pretty special to see.
And that can be one of the magical parts of covering local sports, is it's maybe not necessarily the best collection of players, but the team that plays the best together, and they can get on one of those magical runs.
Yes, and definitely in the local community, people know a lot of these guys by name, especially in Scotland County, where football is such a huge thing. People know these kids by name. They kind of know the depth chart a little bit. So it's important for those kids to get themselves in the paper, but also it's important for them to do well, given the backgrounds these kids come from, and given that they have to uphold a pretty strong tradition.
Each of you are UNCP grads as well, and have had a chance to cover local sports both as a student, but also now working professionally. Which of the UNCP teams do you think is closest to competing for a national championship?
I think right now it had to be the basketball team. I mean, there's also the programs like cross country, track and field have really showed that they're the premier in the Peach Belt in the last couple of years, but basketball seems like they just keep it's a snowball effect, is what Coach Miller's told me. They've really started, things have started coming now. It's affecting all the recruiting trail and everything. So it's really coming together for them. I mean, you're talking about Coach Miller comes into a program that had a very bad, they were the doormat of the Peach Belt, and he's really turned things around. Now they've got national prominence, regional prominence, and they've really came along.
Yeah, and I remember a conversation I had with Paul O'Neill, UNCP's baseball coach, a while back. And I was talking to him about, how do you get these transfers to come to this school? What's your main selling point, with in bringing freshmen into your program? And he said they want to come because we win. And I think that's what a lot of these teams are doing. You're talking about basketball, cross country, track. They see that something special is going on at this school with these programs. So, that's definitely a driving force, and it's good for the school in general, bringing this talent in.
Is there a rivalry of sorts with UNCP and St. Andrews over players who might want to go to one school or the other?
I wouldn't say necessarily. I mean, they probably go after some of the same people. And, it is kind of two different levels, too, because St. Andrews is NAIA. But, they recruit locally, obviously, so I'm sure they're, it's kind of just what are your selling points at that point and what do these athletes want to do. But, I think there might be a little competition there, definitely.
Pitchers and catchers will be reporting for spring training soon, which means eventually we'll get to go to Fayetteville and try out our new minor league team, the Woodpeckers. What would you say would be a way to evaluate whether it's a successful season or not? Obviously not wins and losses, because you never know who's going to be there for long. What do you think would be an indication that Fayetteville or Southeast North Carolina are embracing minor league baseball?
I think it had to be this season. I mean, right now, the news going to be there for that program. I mean, not many people are going to know that this team won the Carolina League last year at Bowie's Creek. But, I mean, the fact is, it's all about marketing, and I feel like based on what I've seen from social media and through everything else, I feel like this marketing team they have at the Woodpeckers is really doing a good job of getting the word out, letting people know that this team's coming. Obviously, you see it right there when you drive through downtown Fayetteville. There's construction, there's cranes, there's everything. I think there's going to be the news going to be there. People are going to want to see the new stadium, the new look, the new feel. And I think it's going to be good. I think it'll be something I've told people. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, Tuesday night when I don't have much going on, if they've got a game, I could see myself driving 35 minutes up the road to go see.
What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big year for the game day staff, for the management up there. I mean, I look at teams, on all levels, even like, say, a summer league like the CPL, where you talk about like the Macon Bacon, who just started out, and they had a very successful first run because they were so strong with marketing. They had a decent team out there. They brought a lot of fans, and like, out in Savannah, it's the same way. So I think there's definitely going to be a lot of pressure on them to kind of bring people to the stadium. I think there's a lot of interest right now, even before it started, which is helpful for them, but it's definitely going to be a big test.
And you guys really get to see all that choreography. You're there way before the game starts, you're there way after the game ends, sort of getting ready to file your story. And you see all of the logistics that it takes to pull off a Dixie Youth World Series or a college game like we had at UNCP last week with sold out stadium, or you see all those logistics. It's not easy to pull off something like that, is it?
No, and that's the thing. And a lot of it's done with interns, like guys that are our age, that are fresh out of college, that are getting paid next to nothing. I mean, we're not getting paid much better, but the fact is they're out there. It's all they do. They're there from the crack of dawn to well after midnight, burning the midnight oil, just trying to get the work done. And that's what it takes. It takes people that are willing to do it. And I think that's what they really look for when they go through that intensive hiring process. That's why the job field is so hard. The job market's really hard in this kind of industry. You're trying to find determined people that's going to find a way to get get butts in chairs. That's what they like to say. So, I mean, that's something that we see, and I always enjoy. I always like seeing a good promotional, a well-run promotional, well-run social media strategy that can really prepare a team to go from just putting a couple hundred in a stadium to a couple thousand.
All right, so we're in North Carolina, so let's start with basketball, right? So last year's Final Four, not a single team from North Carolina. What happened with Carolina, with Duke, with State, with others, and what do you expect to happen this year?
Well, I think the Carolina teams are going to have as big of a shot as ever this year. I think we can agree on that, but there is some strong competition. There's been a little bit of fluctuation in the top 25, and then also I'm a West Coast guy naturally, so I'm looking out for them too. And conferences, like the Pac-12 just isn't looking strong this year, certainly not anywhere close to competing with the ACC. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if we talk about those local teams, I think it'd be good if they make deeper runs than they did last year.
Yeah, but it seemed like an anomaly last year that Duke and Carolina both weren't. Either one of them. I mean, Duke made it to the Elite Eight, lost to Kansas, and especially with that, what they've really become to know with the talented freshman roster. That team just didn't play defense. That was their biggest downfall. And when you look at go back to the Kansas game, they didn't go inside of Marvin Bagley enough. I mean, that was obviously you have one of the most dominant post forces in the game, and you don't go to him enough down the stretch. Really shows where they faltered. And this year it hasn't been that much of an issue. I mean, you honestly have one of the most dominant post players again in college basketball, Zion Williamson, and they also have the balanced staff, Cam Reddish on the wing, R.J. Barrett, who's probably one of the most well-rounded players I've seen in a while. Both of them, all three of those guys are really fun to watch. But with UNC last year, it was just a loss to a much bigger Texas A&M team in Charlotte. I mean, nobody saw that. Well, everybody that knew Carolina's defensive tendencies knew they struggled against bigger teams in the post. So that's what happened there. But with State, I mean, you never know what you're going to get with them. It seems like they can have a really good thing going for them, and then they go to Wake Forest like they did last week and fall on the road, or they just have. There's something around that program. You can't seem to put a finger on what goes.
If the ball can be in Beverly's hands with less than 5 seconds left, you'll take your chances.
Yeah, but that last year was an anomaly with no Final Four.
Which of the state teams do you think has the best chance of making a Final Four run?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I mean, I know John has a little bit more experience with watching them live because he goes out and covers them a little bit. I'm mostly on TV, but what I've seen, I think Duke has the cast to do it, but I can never sleep on the Tar Heels. So I think that'll be interesting to watch them develop a little bit. But yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know. I'll have to get your take on that.
I think it has to be Duke right now. I mean, just like I said, the post dominance right now, and I mean, it's easy for teams to say, okay, I just slow down Zion Williamson, just block him out. But there's teams that have tried to do it, and there's a way he finds to get the ball.
It's like saying, let's just double team LeBron.
Yeah,
we'll take the ball away from him.
And that's the thing. one of the most fun players I've ever watched play. I mean, I just can watch him play, and he just makes it look easy. I mean, Saturday against Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech did what they wanted to do in the first half, was up by 2. Just their defense, they slowed down the pace. They limited Duke on the fast breaks, and Duke doesn't really shoot the ball well. I mean, you looked at the middle 2000s, Duke was known for their three-point shooting. They've really changed the recruiting dynamic, changed their offensive dynamic, and they went 2 for 21 against Georgia Tech on Saturday. So I think Georgia Tech laid out the blueprint to beat Duke, but I feel like Duke will be there in Minneapolis come late March.
Not a great college football year for any of the state teams, although NC State was in the top 25 for some period of time, though they didn't end quite the way that they wanted to. And Carolina's facing a new coaching change. How would you wrap up the state 2018 college football season, and what do you expect from Mack Brown?
Yeah, well, I think you put it pretty well there. It just wasn't a great showing. And, I was actually there for Larry Fedora's last game of the season against State, and NC State got him pretty well down there in Chapel Hill. But I think Mack Brown's philosophy, I mean, he's pretty aggressive. A lot of coaches in his position would say, we're going to start recruiting a little bit. We're going to take a little bit of time. But he's saying, no, we're going to win right now. We're going to get right back in there. And I like what he's doing recruiting-wise, because he's going around trying to talk to these local kids a little bit. And that should work out for him because, we've seen a lot of local talent on the football field this year. But again, he's building a lot of expectations for himself and for that program. So we'll have to see what he's capable of actually doing come football season.
Yeah, and that's the thing I've seen on social media, a lot of local coaches, a lot of in-state coaches. It seems like Mack Brown and his staff are all over the place. Every time Mack Brown is somewhere, they're tweeting a picture of one of the coaches. I think he was he was in Fayetteville last week, so he was there. I saw a couple Fayetteville coaches posting pictures with him and Mack Brown. And that's the thing, he's wanting to win the state first and then go out elsewhere. So I feel like that's where he wants to win. That's where he feels like he won back in his last stint in North Carolina. And then having the national prominence. Everybody knows about Mack Brown because of what he did at Texas with Vince Young winning the national championship and now being on ESPN. He's a face of college football, or a face of college football, and that's what's really helping out on the recruiting trail right now.
It's not the plays, it's the players. You
Yeah.
get enough players and the plays will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Make a prediction for 2019 in college football. Which of the state teams do you think will win the most games?
I think right now, if you had to put a number on it, you had to say NC State. And right now, you don't know about the quarterback situation, but they seem to have had the other pieces. They have the running backs, they have the receivers. I think right now I could see them winning about 8 games.
Yeah, I could see that being around the case. And again, I'm more curious about what's going to go down in Chapel Hill as well, because there's so many question marks heading into the new year. So I can't really. It's kind of hard to put a number on that because that could go, a number of different extremes, but I think that's a pretty good prediction.
But we've been talking about the Big Four, but obviously my Appalachian State friends would obviously say Appalachian State's going to win the most games, and they will more than likely. They'll end up winning the Sun Belt again and making a bowl game. But out of the Big Four, I could see it being NC State.
When you talk to readers or you're at games and see fans milling around and see who you are and that you're covering the game, which sports, which teams are they the most passionate about?
As in locally?
As in anything?
I think right now it's a combination between basketball and football. It depends on who you ask. It depends on what game you're at. Sometimes you'll see a guy at a basketball game say, can't wait till football season, or you see who Carolina signed or State signed like that. Or if you're at a football game, it's opposite. Sometimes you'll say, well, Carolina's starting to get everything ready for the season, or Duke's getting everything ready for the season. So you don't. It's kind of hard to tell. It's a mixture. But it's obviously those two head and shoulders above everything else.
Yeah, and out in Laurinburg, it's Scotland football is a big thing, and Scotland sports in general. And then, you get your choice of professional teams around the area. I know a lot of teams, especially like in MLB, there's a lot of Yankees fans, there's a lot of Red Sox. So there's, a number of different options out there, but definitely it's football's king out there in Laurinburg.
People getting excited about NASCAR season?
I heard you say Yankees.
I'm not sure what last time I've heard NASCAR get brought up. That's the thing, and I hate it because I've went to races out in Darlington. It's just kind of a weird dynamic. I mean, it seems like you would think in the South it would be king, and then it's not really what it used to be.
Do you think that's generational?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and, you know, we both have friends who, you know, from a number of different generations who still follow it. I mean, like I come from the West Coast, and it wasn't a huge presence out there where I was, so, you know, that was kind of a different thing to me. But I know a lot of people who still follow it, who still collect things, and I can see why. I mean, it's, you know, it's pretty exciting if you get involved and get to know these guys, who they are.
yeah, it's like most sporting events, though. You got to be there live to really appreciate it. There's diehards that will follow it every Sunday. My grandparents used to, but I don't think I've been over there on a Sunday and they've had the race on in a while. I think it is because the old names, the Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s, the Dale Earnhardts, Jeff Gordons, they're not there anymore.
And we needed a whole new series of heroes and villains, probably for some people. Panthers, brilliant start. Looked like they were rolling. Kind of lost the momentum there big time. What happened?
It's hard to tell. I mean, you look at what happened. I mean, they were started at 6-2. They go up to Pittsburgh, and it seems like all momentum was lost there. Injuries started to happen. I feel like the offensive line, while it had some pieces, it just wasn't there enough. I mean, you saw Cam was under a lot of duress. Even Taylor Heineke when he was in, and then they had to even go to a third and fourth string there in New Orleans there to close out the year. So I think that was where the biggest deficiency was on the offensive line and not being able to get much going in that. And there's not a lot of weapons on the outside for the Panthers right now. They got DJ Moore, who seems like he can be a number one receiver in the future, but as a rookie, that's a lot to put on somebody's shoulders. So I think this draft will be really important as to where they can go from here. But I think the pieces are there, and the ones that want to say Cam Newton needs to be benched and why do we still have Cam Newton, those people just have no idea what's going on. I mean, this franchise is not where it is right now if it isn't for Cam Newton.
Yeah, and the other thing is that you touched on this too, but you definitely need to protect your quarterback. And I don't think they didn't really do a great job of that this year. And it's kind of unfortunate because they had a lot of, momentum coming into this year with the new owner and all that. Had a little bit of promise, but, I think a lot of that he's taken some hits. And Cam's a big guy. I mean, that's, what a lot of writers.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of writers always talk about that before games, saying, it's not just, his abilities, it's his size that you have to deal with. So he could probably take, a lot of hits at that size, but, he's taking a lot more than he probably should.
New owner, experienced coach, potential minimal patience. What's a good year for the Panthers in 2019?
I think it has to go at least to the playoffs. I mean, that's hope's always for everybody. I mean, especially in the NFC South, where it always seems like you never know what you're going to get. It's a mixed bag. There's years where you're going to have Tampa end up winning the division at 9-7, or there's years where the Saints can do like this year and run away with it at 12-4. But it obviously has to be the playoffs, and that's the thing. Which we weren't sure about the patience of Dave Tepper this offseason, whether he was going to send Ron Rivera off, but he obviously felt like he deserved one more year.
Playoffs or bust?
Playoffs or bust, definitely. I mean, I think the honeymoon effect with that new ownership's kind of over now, and you got to start producing results. There's no more excuses.
Hornets and Hurricanes, both popping in and around 500, a little above or a little below. What do you expect for them the rest of the year?
Well, the Hornets have actually surprised me. I mean, they're right now one of the top teams in their division. They've got Kemba Walker, who was recently named a starter for the All-Star team, which it's kind of, you got to feel for him because they haven't been able to get the pieces around for Kemba. He's honestly one of the best point guards in the league, and you're not sure what's going to happen with him in his future. There's always that little bit of uncertainty whether he'll be back after the trade deadline or next season for that matter. But I think the Hornets, I could see them sneaking as a 7 or 8 seed. Hurricanes, we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, no, I agree with that take on Kemba. I mean, I'm a Blazers fan. They have Damian Lillard over there, and he's kind of in the same situation because he's a great player. But, a lot of those players around him, aren't up to his level, and that's the same thing that Kemba's dealing with. So it's kind of tough for him. They'll need to find some other talent to join him up there.
Can the Canes make the playoffs?
It could be possible, but we'd have to see. I mean, it's been kind of a rough year for them. They'll have to turn a couple of things around before they get there.
Which pro team, in your experience in Southeast North Carolina, do people have the biggest connection to? It's got to be the Panthers, right?
Yeah, I think the Hornets very distant connection. There's not much there. And the Hurricanes is even further than that, even though they're an hour and 15 minutes up the road from Robeson County. There's just not much connect with that. And that actually affects our coverage. I mean, there's times where we have stories from the AP, the Associated Press, about the Hurricanes, and I don't really see a use in running them because there's not going to be much care for that story. There's not going to be much interest. It's Panthers, Hornets, and then Hurricanes if we had to put it in order.
Yeah, there's teams like that, and I mentioned, New York teams, Boston teams, places where people come from. And then there's a lot of people who just follow specific athletes, like LeBron, for example, and they just kind of follow them wherever they go. And they also follow the local athletes who go on, and like I talk about Todd Gurley a lot with the Rams, who's a Charborough product, so people like, watching him and what he does.
Do you think North Carolina has the wherewithal to attract and support a Major League Baseball team?
I think so. I think right now they're Charlotte's AAA team, so you're talking about the step down. And I feel like they're really trying to get traction with the Knights to see if that's where it possibly could go as an expansion team.
Yeah, and I think if it were to work out, if you wanted it to work out, you'd have to attract a younger generation to those games, because then they could start bringing their kids, eventually in, and that would kind of grow your fan base a little bit. And, it would be a big task, there's a whole lot of things that goes into an expansion team anyway, stadium-wise and economy-wise, but I think it would be possible. There need to be a lot of meetings about it. There need to be a lot of steps to be followed.
Most exciting game you covered in the last year?
Oh, you mentioned it in the lead-in just about UNBC. I went to cover Carolina and Charlotte. And then I decided, I'm going to stick around. I haven't seen Virginia play. I've heard all about the pack line defense, what Tony Bennett's done. I mean, that Virginia team was the team that I penciled in right off the bat into the Final Four that last year. So I was like, I'm going to watch this game. I want to see what UVA has, and UMBC defeating them. It was historic.
One for the ages.
It was one for the ages, and it was just. There was people that stuck around. That's why I wrote a column about that after the game. Like, there was Carolina fans that stuck around after they beat Lipscomb, and they just wanted to see. And then I think word got around. There were some people coming in the media entrance a little later on in the game because they went out downtown to hang out and everything, and they wanted to see the history being made. And that's what it was. I mean, I've got videos on my phone and stuff all from that because it was just historic.
Wrapping up, but I wanted to get a Super Bowl take. Patriots or Rams?
I want to go with, I know I'm foolish for betting against Tom Brady, but I think I'm going to go with the Rams just because I'm a West Coast
West
boy.
Coast bias.
Yeah, and I want to see what Todd Gurley can do.
Mm-hmm. I'll say Patriots in a close one. Hard to bet against Belichick.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for being here and wrapping up the 2018 sports year for us and giving us a couple of bold predictions about 2019. Thank you, all of you, for listening and for watching on Impact, and tune in next time for the next edition. I'll roll the credits here in a little.